Cheta and Tommy ignored the taunts from the villagers, especially the young girls, finding solace in each other's company. They knew that they had little in the way of material wealth, but they had something far more valuable: love. After months of growing closer, they decided to marry. Their wedding was a simple affair held under the shade of an old tree with only a handful of villagers in attendance. There were no fancy clothes, no elaborate feast, just a quiet ceremony where they promised to stand by each other through thick and thin. The villagers laughed and scorned them all through the wedding. Welcome to my channel. Today's story is titled Mada Bugichi, meaning man is not God. Cheta was born into a family whose poverty was known to all in the small village. His father, Pa Emeka, was a humble man who owned nothing but an old rickety bicycle. This bicycle creaked with every pedal. The bicycle had been a gift from Pa Emeka's father, and it was the only inheritance he had to pass on to his own children. His wife, Ma Nkechi, was no better off. She owned no jewelry, no fine clothes, not even a trinket to call her own. The family lived in a tiny mud hut, its roof patched with leaves and scrap metal. Inside, the walls were bare, and the floor was nothing more than the cold earth beneath their feet. Cheta was their only son, a boy of strong will and unyielding spirit. From a young age, he had learned to work hard, for there was no other choice. The family's small plot of land was rocky and infertile, and the tools they had were old and worn out. Yet every day, Cheta would rise before dawn, joining his father in the field to till the stubborn soil. They worked until their hands were blistered and their backs ached, but the yield was always small. The other boys in the village, though not wealthy, lived with a comfort that Cheta could only dream of. They wore clothes that were patched but not torn, and their meals were simple but enough to satisfy. They often mocked Cheta, ridiculing him for his ragged appearance and the old bicycle that his father rode. When they saw him in the fields, working in the farm, bent over with sweat pouring from his brows, they would laugh at him and call him names like Obenyononto, meaning wretched. The young girls of the village were not kind to him at all. They gathered in small groups, whispering and giggling as Cheta walked by. To them, he was an object of scorn, someone to be pitied and not even desired. No girl in the village wanted to be seen with him, let alone marry him. They turned up their noses at the thought of associating with someone so poor, someone who had nothing to offer. Cheta endured their taunts in silence. He had no choice but to accept his lot in life. He was poor. Yes, he was poor. But he was determined. And he refused to let their words break him. He continued to work hard, determined to provide for his parents, and one day to build a better life for himself. One day, a new face appeared in the village. Her name was Tommy, a young orphan from a neighboring community. Her situation was even more desperate than Cheta. She had lost her parents at a young age and was taken in by a distant relative who barely had enough to feed herself, let alone another mouth. Tomi owned nothing but an old sewing machine, a rusty one that had belonged to her mother. With it, she mended clothes for the villagers, earning just enough to survive. When Tomi arrived in the village, she quickly became the subject of gossip. The villagers whispered about her poverty, about the tattered clothes she wore, and the worn-out shoes on her feet. But Tomi paid them no mind. She was used to such talk and had long learned to ignore them. Instead, she focused on her work, using her mother's sewing machine to patch up clothes, hoping to save enough money to one day leave the village and start a new life. Cheta noticed Tomi from the moment she arrived. There was something different about her, something that set her apart from the other girls in the village. Unlike them, she did not laugh at him or whisper behind his back. Instead, she offered him a small, shy smile whenever their paths crossed. Cheta, who had grown used to the coldness of others, was taken aback by her kindness. Slowly, he began to speak to her, first exchanging polite greetings, and then as time went on, sharing stories of their lives. Tomi too was drawn to Cheta. She saw in him a kind spirit, someone who understood what it meant to struggle and to fight against the odds. They began to spend more time together, talking as they walked, sharing their dreams and their fears. Cheta found comfort in Tomi's presence, and soon they became inseparable. But the villagers were not pleased. They laughed even harder when they saw Cheta and Tomi together, mocking them with cruel words. P-square, they shouted. Poverty raised to power too. They found it amusing that two of the poorest people in the village had found each other, as if their union was a joke, a sign that they were destined to remain poor forever. Cheta and Tomi ignored the taunts, finding solace and comfort in each other's company. They knew that they had little in the way of material wealth, but they had something far more valuable, and that is love. After months of growing closer, they decided to marry. Their wedding was a simple affair, held under the shade of an old tree, with only a handful of villagers in attendance. There were no fancy clothes, no elaborate feast, just a quiet ceremony where they promised to stand by each other through thick and thin. After the wedding, life returned to its usual routine. Cheta and Tomi continued to work hard, determined to build a better future. They spent their days in the fields, their nights planning for the day when they might have more than just enough to survive. It was a difficult life, but they faced it together. Their love a shield against the hardship that surrounded them. One day, as they were walking on the farm, Tomi noticed a small tree growing at the edge of their land. It was unlike any tree she had ever seen before, with dark twisted branches and very thick leaves. She was intrigued and she tried to cut it down, but the tree was stubborn its roots deep in the ground. She called Cheta, her husband, over, and together they tried to remove it, but the tree would not budge. The next day, Cheta returned to the tree, determined to bring it down. He dug around its roots, pulling with all his might. Finally, with a great effort, he managed to uproot it, leaving a deep hole in the ground. As he looked down, something caught his eyes. It was a small, shiny object buried in the dirt. Cheta reached down and picked it up. Holding it up to the light, it was a stone, but it sparkled like nothing he had ever seen before. Cheta's heart raced as he showed the stone to Tommy. They had no idea what it was, but they knew it was something special. Cheta quickly wrapped it in his clothes and took it home to show his father. On getting home, Pa Emeka examined the stone closely, his eyes wide with disbelief. This could be a diamond, he whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. But Pa Emeka was no expert. He had heard stories of diamonds, but he had never seen one before. Unsure of what to do, he called his old friend Nnamdi, a goldsmith who lived in the city. Nnamdi agreed to help and invited them to bring the stone to his workshop. The next morning, Cheta and Pa Emeka set out for the city. The precious stone carefully tucked into their pockets. The journey was long, but their excitement made the miles pass quickly. When they arrived, Nnamdi welcomed them into his workshop, where he examined the stone with the practiced eye of an expert. After what felt like an eternity, Nnamdi looked up, his face serious. "This is indeed a diamond," he said, his voice steady, "and it is very, very valuable." Cheta and Pa Emeka could hardly believe their ears. They had gone from having nothing to holding a fortune in their hands. Nnamdi helped them to find a buyer, a wealthy man who paid them millions of naira in hard currency. In one day, Cheta's family had become millionaires. But the money alone was not what changed their lives. While staying with Nnamdi few days in the city, he gave them invaluable advice on how to use their newfound wealth wisely. He warned them about the dangers of sudden riches, about the temptations to spend recklessly. He urged them to invest their money carefully, to think about the future. Nnamdi helped them to purchase a beautiful duplex in the city, a home that was a world away from a crumbling shack they had left behind. Cheta returned to the village to fetch his wife, mother, and younger siblings, and they all moved into their new home. It was a moment of triumph, victory over poverty that had defined their lives for so long. Life in the city was a dream come true. Tommy, who had always had passion for fashion, enrolled in a fashion school. She was a quick learner, and before long, she was creating stunning designs that caught the eyes of many. Her talent was undeniable, and soon, Tommy Fashion Hub became a household name. People from all over the city came to her for clothes that were not only beautiful, but also very unique. Cheta, on the other hand, discovered a talent for furniture making. He had always been good with his hands, and now with the resources to buy quality materials, he began to craft pieces that were in high demand. His furniture was known for its quality and craftsmanship, and soon he had more orders than he could handle. As the years passed, Cheta and Tommy's lives continued to flourish. They had left the village behind, but they never forgot their roots. Pa Emeka and Ma Nkechi, now old and weary, decided they wanted to return to the village. Cheta would not let them go back to their old crumbling home. Instead, he built a magnificent house in the village, a home that would be the envy of all who saw it in just 2 months. When the new house was unveiled, the villagers were astonished. The same people who had once laughed at Cheta and Tommy now looked surprisingly. The girls who had rejected Cheta's proposal could only watch in silence, wishing they had seen in him what Tommy had seen. But it was too late. Cheta and Tommy were happy, and nothing could change that. During holidays and festivals, Cheta, Tommy, and their children would visit Pa Emeka and Ma Nkechi in the village. They would sit together, reminiscing about the days when they had nothing. They knew the value of hard work, the importance of perseverance, and the power of faith. As the years passed, Cheta and Tommy's family grew. They had more children, and their children grew up in a world very different from the one their parents had known. They were surrounded by love, by the support of a family that had learned the value of hard work, perseverance, and faith. But no matter how successful they became, Cheta and Tommy never forgot where they came from. They remained humble, always remembering the days when they had nothing but each other. They continued to visit the village, to spend time with Pa Emeka and Ma Nkechi, and to share their story with anyone who would listen. The moral of the story. The lessons are so clear. Never look down on anyone. Life has a way of turning things around. No condition is permanent. You can go to bed poor and wake up rich. But it is not just wealth that lifts people. It is God who is the lifter of men. I hope you enjoyed the story. Thank you for tuning in and staying with me up till this moment. I appreciate. If this is your first time of coming across my channel, you're very much welcome. Kindly subscribe, comment, like, share, and hit the notification bell so that anytime I post amazing videos like this, you will be among the first to be notified. And feel free to go through my channels for more amazing videos. And to my returning subscribers, what can I do without you on this channel? Your love and support has been amazing. I truly appreciate. Thank you very much. I love you. Thank you for always stopping by to watch and engage in my videos. See you in my next one. Bye.